My mother-in-law criticizes me a lot because I prefer to keep to myself at home. She calls me lazy and says I should leave. But isn't she the one who eats and sleeps all day without doing anything? She should be the one to go. I'm Kelly, and I've recently become addicted to potato chips while watching TV. Now, at 39, I've gained extra weight because I haven't been active and ate too much. 2 years ago, I started working from home, which I thought was great because I could sleep in without commuting. But my mother-in-law keeps telling me to get ready for work, even though I don't need to leave the house. She's staying with us without asking. Last year, with the pandemic, we stopped visiting her, and suddenly she moved in with us to be close to her grandchild. Today, my mother-in-law is moving in with us, even though both my husband and I didn't want it. We have a 5-year-old daughter, and we stopped visiting them to keep her safe from getting sick. I didn't like the visit from my mother-in-law, who came from a busier city than ours, leaving my father-in-law behind at their home. Living with my mother-in-law is really annoying, and there's no benefit to it. I've tried to politely ask her to go back, but she ignores us completely. No matter how many times we say we want her to leave, she accuses us of being cold to older people or not caring about family. On the first day she moved in, there was a big argument, and instead of going home, she tried to lock herself in the upstairs of our house. When I blocked her from entering a room, she got angry and upset our child. We were too tired from work and taking care of our child to stand up to her, so we ended up living with her. I tried to explain to her that I work from home now because of changes in my company due to the pandemic, but she doesn't believe me, saying that people in construction can't work from home. I'm actually in the administration department, and I can work on a computer from home. She doesn't trust young people and thinks we don't understand technology. My mother-in-law keeps insisting that there's no such thing as a convenient job like working from home. No matter how much I explain, she won't listen. She's really good at justifying herself and exhausting everyone around her with lectures. To avoid arguments before work, I usually just agree with whatever she says, but the problem doesn't go away. The next day, and every day after, my mother-in-law started calling me a freeloader because I work from home while my husband works outside. She says I just sit around having fun on the computer. She criticizes me constantly, even though I take care of the house, make breakfast, clean, and do the shopping. Ironically, she's the one who does nothing but eat the meals I prepare, snacks I buy, and lounges around the house all day. Despite my complaints, she won't leave. One day, during an online meeting, she burst into my room demanding sweets. I had to explain I was working, but she accused me of pretending. Living with her is really tough. My mother-in-law keeps complaining about little things like having bread for breakfast 2 days in a row and calls me stupid for not being more attentive. Yet, she hasn't contributed anything to our living expenses since moving in. To be honest, I pay the $1,800 monthly mortgage for this house that's in my name. When my husband and I got married, he faced an unreasonable job transfer and was threatened with a demotion when he declined. So he made the tough decision to quit. At the time, I was financially stable working at a larger construction company, so I took out the mortgage in my name. Now, my husband contributes to our expenses, and we share everything as a couple. I'm definitely not the freeloader my mother-in-law claims I am. One day, she insisted I go buy sweets, and when I locked her out of the room to work, she banged on the door and disrupted my meeting. It was so bad that my husband, who's usually careful with his words, cursed and yelled at her, saying enough is enough. Even he had reached his limit. My mother-in-law is assertive with the attitude that she's the parent here, but when my husband gets really angry, she becomes weak. If my husband could control his anger better, maybe she would have left. After he physically escorted her to the front door, she quieted down a bit. Eventually, my husband had to physically remove her from our home, but she forcefully pushed her way back into the house. My husband and I tried to stop her, but we ended up with bruises on our arms and legs. It seems like my mother-in-law is determined not to leave without a fight. She hates being told what to do, so even if we kick her out, she might just come back. We had no idea how to deal with her. Although she had been quiet for a while, one day she started again. She told me she met a neighbor during her walk who mentioned that their wife works from home sometimes but also goes to the office. My mother-in-law used this to claim that I was lying about working from home. She interrupted me at work to prove her point. I tried to explain that my company allows me to work fully remotely, especially since we have a child. But she kept accusing me of lying and being childish. She laughed triumphantly, saying people are shocked to hear that someone works from home like I do. She doesn't believe remote work like mine exists. Despite my attempts to politely ask her to leave so I could focus, she ignored me. She accused us of causing the situation because we stopped visiting her. Her ranting intensified, and I couldn't concentrate on my work. I really need to finish this program for my job, but dealing with her is making it difficult. She demanded that I listen to her and forcefully turned off my laptop, causing me to lose about an hour's worth of work. Then, she insulted me, calling me a freeloader and telling me to get out of the house. In her anger, she even threw the computer at me, breaking the monitor. Luckily, it was my personal laptop and not a company one, but it was still upsetting. I couldn't understand why she called me a freeloader when she's the one who does as she pleases without contributing anything to the household. No one welcomed her presence, and it was frustrating. After that incident, I decided not to argue with her anymore. Since my computer was broken, I had to go into the office to work and reduce contact with her. She made sarcastic remarks, but I ignored them. When my husband heard what happened, he was furious and determined to kick her out. But just kicking her out wouldn't satisfy me. I decided to endure a little longer until she went on a trip with a friend. During that time, I planned to give her a taste of her own medicine. A week later, my mother-in-law returned from her trip in a good mood. But she found me in the room she had been using. She demanded I unlock the door, but I stood my ground, telling her that this was my house and I had been using the room for years. So I told my mother-in-law firmly that she had to leave. She was furious and kicked the door, but I didn't open it. My daughter's voice came from behind the door, asking Grandma to handle things. It seems my husband was also there, advising her not to end up like Grandma. My husband gave my mother-in-law 3 choices. Leave now, think about it, and then leave, or leave and never come back. Despite her anger, my daughter's words seemed to have an impact, and my mother-in-law's voice became weak. She argued back, saying she did nothing wrong, but my husband pointed out how she only thought about herself. Frustrated, I decided to open the door. My mother-in-law was shocked by what she saw inside. She asked where Jung was, and I jokingly said I threw him out with the trash. Jung turned out to be her favorite Korean idol. She had collected CDs and merchandise related to him and had even attended events he participated in. Most of her suitcase was filled with Jung items. When she decorated the room with his posters and photos, I replaced everything with posters of the Backstreet Boys and their merchandise and even changed the curtains. She was upset that everything was different, and we argued about the changes, but it seems my prank caught her off guard and changed her mood. So I decided to play a prank by replacing everything in the room with items that were age-appropriate. I changed the posters to ones of the Backstreet Boys, replaced the curtains, and even swapped out her favorite Joe items with different decorations. When my mother-in-law saw the changes, she was shocked and upset. She asked about her belongings, and I teased her about the cost of the new items, saying that each poster was expensive and even showing off a designer carpet and a Homer Simpson stuffed toy I bought. I explained that if I were really a freeloader, I wouldn't have the money to buy all these things. This seemed to deflate her, and she didn't argue back. Then, I showed her the outfit she would wear the next day. A pair of stylish pants and a t-shirt with freeloader written on it. My mother-in-law was overwhelmed by everything and started to tear up. Eventually, she decided to leave, pulling out her suitcase from the trip and exiting our house. My husband and daughter supported my decision, and she finally left. But I hadn't expected to be this effective later. I contacted my in-laws and said if you want the June goods back, please pay for it. the past living expenses, and the computer. Did I really throw the goods away? Of course. Not that would be a crime. Even if it's family, I just pretended to have thrown them away to break her spirit. In fact, all of my mother-in-law's personal belongings were hidden in my husband's room. Relieved, my mother-in-law immediately accepted my demands. For John's sake, she transferred the money for the past living expenses and a new computer to our account. However, the money came from her husband's retirement funds, which were supposed to be saved for any future needs. Moreover, the money for the trip and her fan activities for Joe also came from those retirement funds. Originally, my father-in-law was bitter about my mother-in-law's uninvited stay at our house and furious about the reckless spending of his retirement funds. Naturally, they ended up divorcing after a huge fight. Since the family home originally belonged to my father-in-law, my mother-in-law was kicked out, probably hoping to rely on us. My mother-in-law found herself without support after my husband declared he wouldn't take care of her. After such a flashy showdown with me, she resigned herself to her fate and didn't seek help. In the end, she moved in with her estranged sister, but was reportedly quite tormented by her niece's good riddance. Meanwhile, our household has become even livelier with our daughter starting elementary school. Lately, she's been learning to make sandwiches at school recreations, and she insists on serving her creations to us every day, so our dinners are full of sandwiches. Well, someday she'll make the best sandwiches for someone important to her, so for now, we're happy to be her practice subjects. My husband, who hadn't had much chance for recognition since changing jobs finally last year thanks to a review of the company's evaluation system, he was able to get a promotion. It's tough when you join a company from the good old days without a solid evaluation system. Hopefully times will keep changing for the easier, thanks to that our lives have gained a bit more comfort. Well, we can't say very luxurious due to the high cost of living, but as long as my husband is here and my daughter and we can eat together as a family, I think we're living a very happy life. What you consider happiness is up to the individual, right? Fortunately, I can keep working happily, and except for my weight, I don't have any health worries. When our daughter said I want to take care of a rescued cat, we went to a cat adoption event and our family grew. Now it's 3 people and 3 pets living together. How could this life not be happy these days? I think I'm living the happiest days compared to anyone.